It was back during the summer of '77, and work was scarce, which is why Keith agreed to take a job demolishing an old stone shed in the backyard of an old house near the bus station. The pay, the minimum, $2.65 per hour. So at 8 o'clock Saturday morning, Keith and the high school kid he was to work with began demolishing the old shed with crowbar and sledgehammers. The kid was okay. He talked too much, but at least he'd brought a transistor radio so they could listen to top 40 hits all day. Keith found a certain satisfaction in swinging the sledge. He'd pretend he was swinging it at someone or something he didn't like, which made him put a little extra muscle into it. A little extra muscle, a little extra oomph. As well, the old shed was home to a colony of spiders. Hairy, British racing green little monsters. And Keith, who hated spiders, enjoyed crushing them with the sledge or underneath his work boots. They were finished by noon on Sunday, and Keith was paid $31.80. But as he was leaving, the boss asked him if he'd like to make an extra $20. Doing what? The answer was guarding the place overnight. The demolition of the shed had exposed the back of the old house, including some flimsy-looking French doors, just inviting a break-in. A new back fence would be going up Monday, but for now the owner wanted someone to watch over the place Sunday night. So that's how Keith ended up lying on a camp bed in front of the French doors, getting paid $20 for sleeping. It's warm nights in the Niagara in August, but if it rained, Keith had a key to the French doors and could let himself in. So, after the darkness had taken control, Keith lay back on the camp bed, listening to the transistor the kid had left behind, and waited for sleep to come. In most Canadian towns, they roll up the sidewalks at 6 p.m., and St. Kitts was no exception. There were few pedestrians, although he did see an attractive, long-haired woman that pricked his interest. Just his interest. And around midnight, an old wino stumbled by, loudly bemoaning that he had no Jesus pension. No Jesus pension. Whatever that meant. Keith also saw a lot of cop cars around, but he wasn't sure if that should make him feel protected or worried. Cops and stray cats, for there were a lot of felines around too. Eventually, Keith slept, only to wake up at 3 a.m. on high alert, somehow knowing he was in danger. He scanned the street across from the backyard, and once his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he saw it. A spider. It was ugly, hairy, and British racing green. But this spider was as big as a car. It had flaming blood-red eyes, and Keith could hear it speaking. Hear its words. Hear its words inside his head, as it said, "You killed all my children, all of them, and enjoyed killing them. Well, now I'm going to enjoy tearing you limb from limb before cutting off your head." Keith ran to unlock the French doors. He didn't think begging for his life would work, and had them almost open. A mangy orange tabby ran right in front of the spider, maybe trying to get away from it, and the monster pounced. Keith heard the cat shriek as he closed the French doors behind him, and knew he would never forget that sound. Ever. Years later, Keith was reading a book of M.R. James' classic ghost stories when he came across the following paragraph in The Ash Tree. The Ash Tree, which described the sound of a cat killed in an especially gruesome manner. It is known to most of us that a cat can cry, but few of us have heard, I hope, such a yell as came out of the trunk of the great ash. 2 or 3 screams there were, the witnesses are not sure which, and then a slight and muffled noise of some commotion or struggling was all that came. But Lady Mary Hervey fainted outright, and the housekeeper stopped her ears and fled till she fell on the terrace. Keith wished that something had stopped his ears. He spent the night inside a locked storage room, not emerging until after sunup. The monster was gone, and Keith made a vow that in future he'd leave spiders alone, and hoped they would reciprocate. When the property owner arrived, he paid Keith the 20, and slapping him on the back said, "Easiest $20 you ever made, eh?" Keith didn't bother to tell him the truth. Instead, he simply said, Yeah. It was the cat's meow." If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the night floaters, werewolves, and the black-eyed children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,500 subs. Till midnight. Cheers. Pictures used in today's video, courtesy of Pix Here. That's PX Here. While the music was The Dread by that patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod. Thanks for listening.